Picture this. It is 2 a.m. You are lying in bed, just staring up at the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, we have all been there.
Right. And the house around you is entirely quiet, like you could literally hear a pin drop. But inside your head, it is a bustling, chaotic, 10-lane highway of noise.
It's just nonstop.
Exactly. You're replaying a mildly awkward conversation from, 3 years ago? You're agonizing over an email you have to send tomorrow morning. And then, the worst part hits.
You start stressing about the fact that you are stressing.
Yes, you're doing the mental math of how few hours of sleep you have left. Your brain absolutely will not shut down, and those racing thoughts are just taking over.
It is an incredibly isolating place to be. And the cruel irony is that, the harder you try to force yourself to go to sleep, the more awake and panicked you become.
You just get trapped.
You get trapped in this brutal feedback loop. Your physical body is completely exhausted, but your nervous system is essentially blaring a 5-alarm fire bell telling you that you are in immediate danger.
It's that desperate feeling of just wanting the internal noise to stop. You just want to pull a plug.
Right.
And that actually brings us to the mission of our deep dive today. We are looking at a highly specific 5-minute zero equipment protocol designed to literally force the nervous system to settle down.
Which is exactly what you need at 2 a.m.
Exactly. And this protocol comes to us from coping and healing counseling, often referred to as CHC, which is a telehealth therapy practice based out of Georgia.
And what stands out immediately as you read through their materials is the sheer pragmatism of it.
Yeah.
Because when you are in that 2 a.m. panic state, you do not need, vague platitudes about finding your inner peace or letting go of the day. You need a mechanical toolkit for a physiological problem.
Okay, let's unpack this because I am always eager to jump into immediate actionable hacks.
No, you are.
I really am. The idea that I could do something in 5 minutes, lying in the dark, with zero equipment to shut down that panic is just incredibly appealing.
It's highly appealing. And to be clear, these tools are incredibly effective in the short term.
But there's a catch.
Well, we just need to anchor this conversation right from the jump with a crucial caveat that the source material itself makes very clear. These techniques are not magic.
Right.
And more importantly, they are not a replacement for therapy. Think of this protocol as an emergency brake. It's a brake you can pull tonight so you can actually function tomorrow.
An emergency brake. I like that. It validates the frustration of the racing mind, but gives you something concrete to do about it right now instead of just, wishing it away.
Exactly.
So let's get into the actual toolkit. The protocol is broken down into 3 physical interventions. And the very first one, which frankly might be the most surprising, is what I'm calling the acoustic override.
The instruction here is beautifully simple, yet deeply physiological. You are instructed to hum.
Just hum.
Just hum, low and slow, for about a minute.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the text explains the underlying mechanism behind this. The vibration physically tells your body it is safe.
I mean, it's like a physical all-clear siren for a fortress.
That's a great way to think of it.
Right. Instead of a blaring, high-pitched alarm telling the guards to panic and man the walls, it's this low, internal, steady hum that echoes through the courtyard, signaling to the guards to stand down. The threat has passed.
Exactly.
But I have to push back on this a little bit. Wait, just making a weird noise in my throat tricks the entire body into feeling safe. How does that not just feel like a distracting placebo?
That's a very natural skepticism for sure, but the physiological reality of what's happening here is fascinating. It is not just a distraction technique. When the text instructs you to keep it low and slow for a full minute, you are creating a literal physical vibration in your vocal cords, your throat, and your chest. You are mechanically interrupting the panic response.
Because panic is usually, fast and shallow.
Exactly. Think about where panic lives. It lives in high-frequency, shallow breathing spaces. Humming forces a low-frequency, sustained output.
Okay, but what is that vibration actually doing? Is it just shaking the tension out of the muscles or something?
It goes much deeper than the muscles. We are talking about the vagus nerve.
Oh, the vagus nerve.
Yeah, this is the superhighway of your nervous system that runs from your brainstem down through your neck, right past your vocal cords, and into your chest and gut.
Wow.
When you hum at a low frequency, you are physically vibrating that nerve. That vibration acts as a direct mechanical signal back up to the brainstem, saying, hey, we have the bandwidth to make this slow, sustained noise. We are not running from a tiger right now.
So you're basically hacking the communication line.
You are.
You can't be in a state of primal hyperarousal and simultaneously produce a low, resonant hum for 60 seconds.
Yeah.
The body's hardware it can't hold both of those states at once.
That's a spot-on way to put it, and it's brilliant that the source explicitly acknowledges the awkwardness of it.
Yeah.
They write right in the text, yes, it sounds silly, it still works.
I love that they put that in there.
Acknowledging that silliness is actually a vital part of the intervention.
But why? If it's a mechanical vagus nerve hack, why does feeling silly matter at all?
Because when we are in that 2 a.m. panic state, we are taking ourselves and our thoughts incredibly seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
Every anxiety feels like a literal life or death crisis. By asking you to do something objectively a little bit silly, like lying in the dark, humming to yourself, it lowers the emotional stakes.
It takes the pressure off.
Right. It removes the performance anxiety of trying to, say, meditate perfectly. You aren't trying to achieve enlightenment. You are just making a weird noise.
That makes so much sense. So we've established the internal acoustic vibration, we've vibrated the vagus nerve and signaled the guards to stand down. Now, the protocol moves from that internal sound to an external environmental shock. Step 2 is a thermal shock to target the body's reflex.
That's right. The next step involves splashing cold water on your face.
Okay, cold water.
But the text is very specific about the geography of this. It tells you to target the forehead, the cheeks, and around the eyes. Or, alternatively, holding a cold pack to those specific areas for 30 seconds.
The text mentions this triggers a reflex that slows your heart rate. It reminds me of an overheated computer.
Oh, how so?
Well, when your processor, the brain, is running way too hot, churning through a million racing thoughts,
Yeah.
the internal cooling fans kick on and start spinning at maximum speed. That's your heart rate racing.
I see. Yeah.
Applying that cold pack to the face is like forcing the system to physically throttle down those cooling fans. But I'm curious about the specific instructions here. When they say around the eyes and forehead, are we talking about specific nerve clusters?
Yes, exactly.
Because I was wondering, why couldn't I just hold an ice cube in my hand? Is the 30-second rule a hard limit? Or is the secret sauce really just about hitting those specific targets?
It is definitely about those specific targets. If you put an ice cube in your hand, or I don't know, on your knee, you would just feel cold.
Right.
You wouldn't get the systemic result this protocol is aiming for. The forehead, the cheeks, and the area around the eyes are incredibly dense with specific nerve endings, primarily the trigeminal nerve. And those connect directly to the nervous system's core regulatory centers in the brainstem.
So what happens when that specific area gets hit with a sudden drop in temperature?
It triggers an ancient evolutionary mechanism called the mammalian dive reflex.
The mammalian dive reflex.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is that when those specific nerves sense sudden cold water, your brainstem instantly assumes you have just submerged yourself underwater.
Oh, wow.
To keep you alive and conserve oxygen, your body initiates a hard reset. It forcefully and dramatically slows down your heart rate.
The body literally thinks, we are underwater, shut down non-essential panic, save the oxygen.
Precisely. It bypasses the racing thoughts entirely. It hijacks the body's hardware to force a slowdown, regardless of what the software your mind is worrying about.
That is incredible.
You might still be agonizing over that email from 3 years ago, but your heart is being biologically mandated to beat slower.
That is wild. We are literally using an evolutionary drowning reflex to stop a 2 a.m. panic attack.
We really are.
Okay, so we've used sound with the humming to break the panic cycle. We've used temperature with the cold water to force the heart rate down through the dive reflex. And now the protocol moves to the body's most fundamental mechanical rhythm to sustain that calm. We're talking about the breath.
Right. Step 3 is a highly structured breathing pattern, the 4-8 breath.
4-8. So what does that look like?
You breathe in for 4 counts, and you breathe out for 8 counts. And the text instructs you to repeat this exactly 5 times.
Now, I want to point out a huge misconception here. When people see someone panicking or when they feel panic themselves, the instinct is almost always to take a giant, gasping, deep breath in.
Right, take a deep breath.
Everyone says that. But the source insists, and this is a vital caveat, that the long exhale is the part that actually does the work.
It is completely counterintuitive to our cultural ideas about calming down, but physiologically, it is the only way that makes sense.
It makes me think of a highly pressurized tire.
How do you mean?
If a tire is already bulging and overinflated, which is exactly what a full-body panic state feels like, you wouldn't try to frantically pump more air into it.
Yeah.
That just adds pressure and makes it worse.
Right, it would just burst.
You need to let the air out slowly through the valve. That long 8-count exhale is letting the pressurized air out of a bursting system.
That's a really great analogy.
But break down the mechanics for me. Why does the long exhale matter more than the deep inhale?
It goes back to that physical wiring we talked about earlier. When you inhale, your diaphragm moves down, and it actually slightly suppresses the vagus nerve.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which causes your heart rate to speed up a tiny bit. But when you exhale, the diaphragm relaxes upward, stimulating the vagus nerve and mechanically forcing the heart rate to slow down.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so by making the out breath exactly twice as long as the in breath, 8 counts to 4 counts, you are disproportionately spending time in the slow down the heart rate phase of respiration.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. But let me ask you about the repetition. The text explicitly says to do this 5 times. Why exactly 5 times? Does capping it at 5 repetitions give the brain a much-needed boundary?
It's absolutely about the boundary. Think about the math of this entire protocol from start to finish.
Okay, let's add it up.
You hum low and slow for about a minute. You apply the cold pack to your face for 30 seconds. You do the 4-8 breathing cycle 5 times, which takes exactly 1 minute.
Okay.
Add in a little buffer time to walk to the bathroom sink or get the ice pack from the freezer. The entire protocol totals just about 5 minutes.
A 5-minute protocol, exactly as promised.
Yes, and 5 minutes is a highly achievable, tightly bounded time frame.
That's true.
When your mind is racing at 2 a.m., telling yourself to, meditate for half an hour until you feel better, it feels like an impossible mountain to climb. The anxiety of trying to relax for an indefinite period just creates more anxiety.
Oh, 100%.
But telling yourself, I'm going to do this specific, weird checklist of 3 things for exactly 5 minutes, and then I am done, it entirely removes the pressure. It gives the panicked brain a defined finish line.
So we have this incredible 5-minute toolkit. It works for one difficult night. It settles the system, pulls the emergency brake, and lets you get some sleep.
Exactly.
But the source text then pivots to a much larger question, and honestly a much harder reality. What happens when these nights happen all the time?
Right. The text uses a very evocative phrase for this. It suggests that if racing thoughts are a regular guest, therapy helps you understand what they are trying to tell you.
A regular guest. I really like that framing because it personifies the thoughts. They aren't just random static or a broken machine.
Yeah.
They are visitors showing up at your door at 2 a.m. demanding your attention.
And if you keep pulling the emergency brake every single night, eventually the brake pads wear out.
Right.
Chronic nervous system dysregulation, basically being stuck in that panic state constantly, actually begins to change the architecture of how your brain processes stress. Wow.
You can't just keep splashing cold water on your face forever. You need a professional to help rewire the system. And this is exactly where the text introduces coping and healing counseling, or CHC, as the provider equipped to do that rewiring.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The scale and the setup of this safety net. It's like having a master mechanic available in your living room.
It really is.
CHC operates as a 100% telehealth therapy practice. They are high-pay compliant, and they serve all 159 counties in the state of Georgia.
That's a massive coverage area.
Yeah. They boast a diverse, culturally competent team of over 15 licensed therapists, which includes licensed clinical social workers, licensed professional counselors, and licensed marriage and family therapists.
It's quite a team.
But practically speaking, Georgia is huge. Does the fact that they operate entirely via telehealth, like 100% virtual, change the nature of getting help across such a massive geographic area like all 159 counties in Georgia? It absolutely changes the nature of it. They bridge the gap by completely eliminating the traditional physical friction of seeking mental health care.
The commute and all that.
Right. The 100% telehealth model is not just a convenience, it's a clinical advantage for someone with a dysregulated nervous system.
How so?
Think about the traditional therapy experience. You have to commute through traffic, find parking, sit in a sterile waiting room with strangers. All of these things are potential triggers that heighten anxiety before the session even starts.
That makes total sense.
Telehealth entirely bypasses that. You are receiving culturally competent, highly specialized care from the safety and regulation of your own living room, whether you live in downtown Atlanta or a rural county near the border.
And looking at their list of specialties, it covers a really wide spectrum of why that regular guest might be keeping you awake. They handle anxiety, depression, trauma and PTSD, grief, relationships, and general stress.
Right. Those 5-minute nightly hacks, the humming, the cold water, those put out the immediate fire in the kitchen. But CHC's team of therapists are there to inspect the foundation of the house.
I love that.
They help you decode the underlying message of the racing thoughts. Whether that guest is showing up because of unresolved grief, deep relationship stress, or underlying trauma, the 2 a.m. thoughts are just a symptom of a much deeper narrative.
Okay, so recognizing that the racing thoughts are a symptom is a massive first step.
Yeah.
Understanding why you might need a therapist makes sense. But let's be real here. Actually, affording and accessing a professional is, for so many people, the absolute biggest roadblock.
It is often the definitive barrier that stops people from getting help.
Because finding a therapist who even takes insurance right now is rare, let alone one you can afford out of pocket.
Very true.
But the text breaks down CHC's services and their financials in a way that is incredibly transparent. I was actually marveling at the financial accessibility.
It's quite unique.
They offer a massive range of services: individual therapy, couples therapy, family therapy, teen therapy for kids 13 and older, and even life coaching. By offering everything from teen therapy for 13-year-olds to family therapy and life coaching, does CHC act essentially as a one-stop mental health urgent care for the whole family.
They absolutely function that way, yes.
And the financial breakdown is what really caught my eye. For the price of a couple of coffees or literally nothing at all, a person can access professional help. For Medicaid patients, there is a $0 copay.
$0.
Zero. And for other major insurances, they explicitly list Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Humana. The cost ranges from just $10 to $40 per session.
That level of upfront financial clarity is extremely rare in the healthcare space.
But why is putting that exact math right on the front page so critical for someone in a panic state? Doesn't the quality of the therapy matter more than the price tag on the brochure?
The quality matters immensely once you are in the door, but you have to get people through the door first. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, to the physiological reality of the nervous system we've been discussing, we have to recognize that financial stress is a massive trigger for racing thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the biggest ones.
Exactly. A brain in a state of panic cannot handle ambiguity or complex problem solving.
That makes total sense. If you are already overwhelmed, the prospect of navigating a labyrinth of surprise medical billing is enough to make you just give up and go back to bed.
Precisely. The financial unknown acts as a massive cognitive load. By outlining exactly what it costs up front, stating clearly that it is $0 for Medicaid, and explicitly defining that narrow $10 to $40 window for major insurance providers, CHC eliminates that financial unknown.
They just take it completely off the table.
They are regulating the patient's nervous system before the first session even begins. They eliminate the unknown that usually prevents people from picking up the phone or visiting the website.
They're essentially applying the exact same philosophy as the 5-minute toolkit. Make it accessible, make the boundaries clear, and remove the obstacles.
Exactly right.
If you're in Georgia and that regular guest keeps showing up at 2 a.m., you don't have to wait for a crisis to hit an unbearable peak. Tomorrow morning, you can literally just pull out your phone, punch in 404-832-0102, or go to their website at geotherapy.com and start fixing the wiring. You can even just shoot them an email at support@shoottherapy.com.
They are drastically lowering the stakes of asking for help, much in the same way that humming in the dark lowers the stakes of trying to calm your body down.
So let's run through a quick energetic recap of the actual physical toolkit you now have at your disposal for tonight.
Let's do it.
If you are lying there, the house is quiet, and the thoughts absolutely will not stop, you have a 5-minute zero equipment protocol. First, the acoustic safety of a 1-minute low, slow hum to mechanically vibrate the vagus nerve and signal safety. Second, the thermal override of splashing cold water on your forehead, cheeks, and eyes for 30 seconds to trigger the mammalian dive reflex and physically slow your heart rate.
Rip.
And third, the mechanical release of the 4-8 exhale, breathing in for 4 and letting that long exhale out for 8 to naturally slow the system, repeating it exactly 5 times. All of this takes just 5 minutes.
It is a powerful, deeply science-based sequence. But we must pivot back to the long term for a moment and leave you with the overarching lesson from the Coping and Healing Counseling text.
The crucial caveat.
Right. While these tools will quiet your mind for tonight, they are tools, not a replacement for therapy. They are the emergency brake. They are not the steering wheel.
You use the tools tonight so you can have the energy and the bandwidth to do the real work tomorrow.
Which brings up an important question to leave you with. We've spent this entire deep dive discussing the mechanics of how to shut off the noise. We've talked about how to silence the racing thoughts.
Yeah, that was the whole mission.
But the source material explicitly suggests that your racing thoughts are trying to tell you something. Tonight, you learned exactly how to successfully quiet them down. But tomorrow, what might happen if you finally sat still, stopped trying to silence them, and actually listen to the message they've been trying to deliver?